Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
Merry Christmas, everybody. It's
almost there.
We're getting there. Getting excited. It is that time. I think 19 days. Is that what it is? 18?
I don't like math, so I'll disagree
17?
with you.
I guess it's Friday.
It's the 9th.
The 9th.
December 9th.
So
take
16
25.
days.
It's 16 days.
Subtract that from, 16 days. I mean, we all have kids here. Are your kids like marking that down on a calendar? They have advent calendars. Are they tracking it down? Asking Alexa or something?
We did advent calendars this year, and I have a little snowman, and his little carrot nose moves every day. So yeah, we keep
we have like a block, thing that my kids change every day to the countdown. The unfortunate thing is we disagree with our neighbors who have like who's the guy from A Christmas Story and the pink bunny? Ralphie. They have a Ralphie thing out there, and he's holding a digital sign that says days till Christmas, and it's one day ahead of ours. And so maybe they're not counting today in that count, but it's a point of contention in our family.
Maybe they're not counting Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Huh.
But I think the official, if you asked Alexa or Siri, is the one that we have, because that's what my kids also do, just to confirm.
Hey Siri, how many days until Christmas? It didn't work.
That didn't work. Plus, it's 2 days from now.
Because we're recording this earlier. Good call. So. I don't. Do you have any other? Like, I know you guys don't do Elf on the Shelf, do you?
Yes, we do.
Oh, you do Elf, and Alex does.
We're a little more holy. Yeah.
You do the angel.
The journey across Bethlehem thing.
Yeah, my kids every day they marry Joseph and the donkey. They take turns hiding it.
That's cute.
On their journey. To Bethlehem. So just, a little more, I think, of the Jesus Juke version of the Elf on the Shelf.
I just saw this really cute video of a little British kid, and he woke up in the morning and had marker all over his face. Like his parents had drawn like glasses and a mustache on him. And then they had the elf sitting next to him holding a marker and was like, look what he did.
Our elf is very low maintenance. Like,
not
she just moves and they try to find it. That's it. I don't do like the elaborate. I'm very impressed by some people that
really go after it.
Do that.
Okay.
I saw Hidden Valley Ranch.
The ranch?
Did you see that? They tried to do ranch on a branch.
No, I did not see that. It's a good one, though.
Instead of the elf.
I didn't see that either.
What are you finding?
Sense.
Are you finding some good Best Buy deals there, Alex? I just happened to look over at your iPad and you're looking at the Best Buy website.
Eric, maybe we should just have our conversation.
Yeah, I mean, he seems busy over there.
You making an appointment with the Geek Squad?
No, what's happening is I need
us.
to purchase a computer for somebody else. And they sent me something on Teams, and so I was making sure it was still on sale.
Okay. Behind the scenes.
Wow.
Well, because there was one of those that said earlier today, it said you have an hour and 20 minutes for it to be delivered another day. So.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry.
Shopping.
Do you got a voicemail over there, or do you still need to check?
Do you tell us what you? What else do you have in there?
Here's
Alex?
the voicemail.
Okay.
Hello.
That was a short one.
No, I don't know why it stopped. It stopped at 2 seconds.
My name is Lottie Lackey, and I had a fun icebreaker idea for you guys on the podcast.
Okay.
And so I've been feeling a little under the weather, so I've had lots of time on my hands to just chill on the couch and watch my favorite show, which is The Voice, the singing competition show. And they have blind auditions where you sing a song and the coaches don't see you singing the song until if they like you, then they get to turn around and see you. And so I've been thinking a lot about what song I would choose for a blind audition on a singing competition show. So I wanted to pose that question to you all as well. If you were on a singing competition show, what song would you audition with and why? Have a great day.
That's an interesting question.
I feel like we've had song questions before, but this kind of ups the ante because it's the one we're choosing is one we have to feel confident in, not just like, oh, we're going to karaoke and make people laugh.
I mean, Alex's is Go Light Your World by Kathy Tricoli, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, we should have let him say that. No, we took away his thunder.
I'll have to think of an alternate song now.
Sorry. My go-to karaoke song is always "Friends in Low Places" by Garth Brooks. So
I can hear you singing that.
I might go with that one just because I know the lyrics really well, and I think that I don't know very many song lyrics that well. Like I don't have them internalized that well, but for some reason that one. Although when I was a kid, my mom would make me. I remember singing this song in like I don't know 4th, 5th grade, and my mom would make me change the lyrics because it says "Where the whiskey drowns and the beer chases my blues away," and she'd make me change that out with Pepsi and Coke. So where the diabetes drowns and the sugar chases my blues away. I don't know. But
that's how you remixed it.
Yeah, that's what I think about it now because I'm like, I don't know, sugar. It's probably bad.
Reminds me of a remix coming soon. Tech is everywhere, man.
Yeah,
but that's not the song I would sing. The song I would sing probably is by Edwin McCain. I'll be your crying shoulder.
Oh,
I'll be.
Yeah, now I know
suicide.
It. Yeah.
I'll be better when I'm older. I'll be the greatest fan of your life.
It's a good one.
Just love that. Like just the passion that you feel when he says rain falls.
Okay.
Angry on the tin roof. Anyway, that's my answer. It's been a go-to.
Yes.
I think I would go Big or Go Home.
Is that a
because
song?
I'm probably
What
going
song is
home
that?
anyways, so I'm gonna go Big. I would probably do something by Celine Dion.
Oh.
I think maybe my heart would go on. I feel pretty confident in that when I'm karaokeing on my back porch.
Wow.
If I had to pick a Christian song, I would sing "Testify to Love" by Avalon. Because when I was little, I used to play guitar, and everyone would always request me to like sing that in church.
Yeah. Are we picking Christian songs
I don't
too?
know. I just
okay, because
that
mine
song
would be
came to mind.
"Thank You" by Ray Boltz. So.
And everyone's crying when you're singing it. And inspirational.
That's it.
You're definitely getting a chair turned. What about you, Alex? You can.
Christian
Alex
song?
is going to go.
I already named
DC
it.
talk. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
You're
want
going to
it.
do a little rap, I think.
I don't want
No,
it.
because the thing about rap is it wouldn't allow me to just show off my vocal range. Rap is a little bit less. I've got a lot of range
That's true.
on
You
my
do
voice.
have range.
And so if I'm just singing like a rap song, no one's turning their
because you
chair
want to
around.
hit those high notes.
Yeah.
So maybe it is. It's the Catholic
Yeah.
Tricoli. I
And-
see it.
And so, yeah, it probably would be "Go Light Your World," and I am very proud that she did respond
On
once
Twitter?
we posted that and said I lit her world with that rendition that I did. So
Who could say they lit Catherine Tricoli's world?
I mean, yeah.
I can.
Yeah, that's true.
I was trying to look up because I remember TRL.
You should
yeah.
you should probably just pin that tweet in case anyone wants to see that. So
we don't have to
when
go
they're listening
searching.
to this.
Oh yeah, I'll go find that, pin it today
Find it
after I
at
purchase
Alex
this computer.
yeah.
And I think "My Heart Will Go On" was like the longest standing #1 on TRL at one point. I was trying to fact check that because I know sometimes I have thoughts that aren't actually true and they get fact checked.
It's a good one. I gotta say.
Well, the Titanic kind of helped propel that
1998.
song.
1998. Yeah, that was a good.
A lot of bangers that year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for this portion of the episode. But
Thanks
don't
for
go
the
anywhere.
question, Lottie.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And you need to let us know. You didn't give us your answer, Lottie. You just told us you're thinking about it. So
yeah.
let us know. And those of you listening,
We need to know.
yeah. And if you have a video of it, feel free to send it in. Maybe we'll play it on the show.
Send it. Yep. All right. Up next, we've got headlines. All right. Our first headline today comes from the New York Post. It reads, "I charge my family for Christmas dinner, even my 3-year-old grandkids." Everyone has their family traditions that come up during the holiday, but this one mom is taking it to the extreme. Caroline.
Seems like not so sweet, Caroline.
Yeah.
I'm still doing karaoke over here.
Okay.
Sorry.
You made me think of a rabbit hole here, but I saw that Apple is actually releasing Apple Music Play or something like that, where you can like do karaoke on all their songs, like on like their devices. Anyways,
Bum, bum, bum.
let's look forward to that. Sweet Caroline. No, Caroline Dutteridge, 63, is charging everyone for Christmas dinner, including her young grandkids. The mom of 5 and grandma of 6 is charging adults up to $18 per meal. Up to, does that mean like depending on what they eat?
Maybe.
Like, hey, you can have the all-you-can-eat experience for $18 or the single plate for $12, you know, that sort of thing.
Dessert included.
Yeah. Would you like to upgrade? Her 12-year-old and 3 9-year-old grandchildren have to pony up $6, and her 2 3-year-old grandchildren are being charged $3. She charges the adult women less because they have families and work part-time. Okay.
She says expecting one person to pay for the entire meal, prepare it, clean up, have their heating and electricity used is too much. The amount I charge for dinner includes electricity. It's a no-brainer for me. It's the only way to go.
You guys ever see that show called Extreme Cheapskates on TLC where people were like reusing?
I know.
You just live
them
that
in
life.
real life.
Oh, okay.
I know a few of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, it kind of reminds me of that where they are very, you know, like don't flush the toilet. And like,
frugal
if it's yellow, keep
with
it,
everything.
let it mellow sort of thing. And
for sure.
All that stuff. Is that how you operate at your house?
Sure. Well, and also if it's yellow, things are, you need to drink more water.
Yeah. Pee pale is another good rule.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I understand. I think probably depending on a financial situation, and she's got sounds like a big family. Maybe she's like I don't see anything about a husband. Maybe she's a single grandparent. That could
I think
be
that's
part
why
of
it started. Is she gets a certain amount from widow's benefits?
Yeah,
she is a widow.
She's a widow. Okay.
The end of the article does say she's not the only one making her family pay. According to the Sun, I don't know, not Jesus, but the Sun I think is her
son.
Another
SUS.
Like another tabloid or something. 58% of readers surveyed actually agreed on charging for their meal.
Really?
Those
50?
on the fence or against the idea split the difference with 21% each. So 21% are on the fence, according to this other article, about maybe I should, and then only 21% of people are like, don't charge people for a meal.
How do your holiday meals operate then? Because I feel like for me growing up, it's just even with siblings and families getting together, you kind of all just
Contribute.
chip in on the food.
Yeah.
Like you're not paying for it, but everybody brings a thing.
That's more.
And
I
guess
feel like that's more
similar.
traditional. And that might be more of a Midwest thing. I don't know.
So
that we're doing
maybe
that.
her perspective is you're not making any of the food. So I guess that makes sense. Helping out.
I know.
It's very weird though.
It's different. And also I just feel like it's a good reminder of how much people do work to do food and all that. Like, and we kind of put expectations on, oh, well, mom's going to make the turkey or so-and-so is going to do this. And we just show up. And so ask them if I need some help.
Well, it seems like a pretty reasonable price. I mean, in this economy. So I guess.
And I mean, honestly, if I'm just thinking out loud, like if my mom was like, hey, I'm going to take care of everything this year, like as opposed to everybody bringing something this year, like I've got a meal plan and it all kind of goes together well. And I want to spend that time and hey, would everyone just pitch in, you know, for the total cost? Like I could see, we would be like, yeah, we'll pay, something for our family.
It seems a little weird to like individualize it so much. So
Yeah.
I feel like it just be like, okay, everybody chip in $50 or for whatever it is, every family, like, and just leave it at that. But then I suppose then they're like, well, it's not fair. They have 3 kids and we only have 1.
Last year, I mean, we do like a family kids gift exchange, and there were some texts exchanged by my siblings that without kids, feeling like their pets are left out of the exchange. And so I can see that people, are like, maybe it's the FOMO, like I'm missing out on this because I don't have we don't have kids, and therefore like I don't get the fun of shopping. And then because we all like they watch all the nephews and nieces pick out the gifts, and so I do think that those with pets did do a separate one. So we'll take all the judgment.
We're totally getting off topic,
We're not a pet
but one
person.
of my friends is
We're
they
good
drew
at that.
Secret
We're very good at
Santas. She
that.
has a corgi. They're like in a corgi group, and they drew Secret Santas like across the United States, and so she's shopping for another corgi.
Wow.
I mean, so it's a valid pets are a valid thing. But question: would you pay? We'll say $15 a person in your family towards a meal, or would you rather help with it?
For sure, rather help with it, I think.
Yeah,
Save some
I would. I
money.
mean, I like cooking, so I would definitely. I mean, if I would almost rather do the brunt of it than like just pay towards it.
You'd be like, okay, you're asking this money, and so I'm going to give extra because obviously you got to a point where you're asking for money.
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting all my nephews and nieces this year for Christmas? Parody Christian T-shirts.
Ooh.
Oh, wow. Look at you. You just cooking up segues over there, huh? All right. That's
Look at you.
Yeah, that is a great segue, Alex. Thank you. I'll go ahead and retire. This is from relevantmagazine.com. It says the definitive ranking of Christian Parody T-shirts. Always make a great holiday deal. How many of these did you own, Alex? Several?
A
dozen?
Did not have any of them.
I
really?
don't believe it.
But doing
Look
student
at this.
ministry,
Air Jesus?
doing student ministry for a long time. Like it's always been a cringe thing for me personally. The Christian T-shirts. I'm not gonna say no one's ever gifted me one, but it is not.
Eric, I feel like you should share the top 3 that they have listed on here because they're pretty solid.
Well,
maybe even the top 5.
Working at a Christian bookstore in my early life for quite a few years.
Let's put food on your table.
I sold a lot of Christian
Yeah.
Like that was a huge chunk of our retail space was like a display of probably 50 different designs of Christian T-shirts, and the majority of them were parodies, and people loved them. It is. I don't understand why. And I mean, I had a few, but I didn't. Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. I didn't really like. I would just get them from distributors because they'd send samples or whatever. But the first one was a breadcrumb and fish, which was supposed to be a play on Abercrombie and Fitch.
I like girls that wear a breadcrumb and fish.
Yeah, you and LFO.
Yeah.
There's the
No one's going to get that except me. Maybe. Did you get that?
That's why I said him and
Okay.
LFO.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Lord's Gym is the second one, which that's based off Gold's Gym, isn't it? The same logo and everything, but it's like Jesus lifting the cross and the sin of the world.
Bench pressing the sin of the world.
The other is number 3 is Body Piercing Saved My Life. And that one, that's not a parody as much as just something they found pithy, I think. Jesus is My Homeboy. Now that one really blew up because Ashton Kutcher wore it and then everyone started wearing it. Like the Jesus Christ in the Coca-Cola font.
I feel like Pepsi, there was like a Pepsi one too.
My Lifeguard Walks on Water.
This is just taking us all back.
Jesus, Sweet Savior, King of Kings. That's the Reese's peanut butter cup one. I remember the one that's not on here that I was sad I didn't see is the Krispy Kreme one. I remember selling a lot of those and it said Christ Supreme on there.
Yeah.
So,
I never saw this Deal or No Deal one, but Take the Deal. It's got a cross on there and the logo like Deal or No Deal.
that is a weird, it feels like you're distilling the Christian faith into a joke in a lot of ways, and it just feels weird to me. I don't know how to explain.
I don't know if these will ever make a comeback, but it's.
I could see it if there was somehow it just became trend, like the right person wearing something like this. That's all it would take. Like,
yeah.
And there's a difference between, I think, the logo ones, like they hijack like a popular logo versus like Jesus is My Homeboy. I think those are two kind of separate things, and definitely taking like even the My Lifeguard Walks on Water. That's just, I don't know, to me a little different than like the Coke symbol or the Reese's symbol.
Yeah.
But
there you have it. I don't know. Maybe they'll make a comeback. We do sell some apparel here at the church, so maybe.
Maybe
I could
inspire.
Could design something there that really brings it back.
Sometimes I wonder. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just when I look at like, just the pictures of people that are, they were royalty-free photos or whatever, and then people just slap a logo on it. Like how much those people like ever find themselves on there and like, what?
Oh yeah.
You did what to me?
For the models, you mean?
Yeah.
For like T-shirt. Yeah.
Anyway.
That's a random thought. Thanks for sharing that. Maybe next time consider sharing it when we're not recording a podcast.
Watch out for the mic.
Okay. All right. That does it for headlines.
I bet you Austin.
That's random.
Austin probably did wear.
For sure.
Okay.
Austin, hold up how many of those shirts you
Austin,
owned? Like on it.
hold up.
Oh, 0?
Write
Oh,
down
for
on
real?
a piece of paper which one you wore. Just hold up a finger. Which
I
one?
don't believe it.
Where on
Okay.
the
He
Christian
had-
Worked that
T-shirt?
buckle, and he probably had a whole
Yeah.
line of.
He had he said he held up 6. My lifeguard walks on water.
Oh, is that the one that you had?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
For
Matthew
sure.
14:22. That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right.
He didn't really. Just to clear his name, Austin's feeling. He held up 0.
Well,
is what he
no
said.
one can. It's your word against mine.
That's true.
Let's go.
Fake news. All right. Up next, we're talking about food, fads, and faith. Food, fads, and faith. It is getting increasingly close to New Year's resolutions, but this isn't really the purpose for this conversation. I think a lot of times there's a lot of conversations around that time, and people jump on something and then they fall off the wagon pretty quick.
A lot more advertisement probably
Yeah.
we'll see from gyms and
Yeah.
diet plans and that around this time.
Deals.
But I think with the market size and revenue of weight loss, the weight loss industry and influencer culture and all of that stuff, that's not just a January thing. I'd almost say sometimes, you go all year and then people maybe kind of go a little easier in December and, maybe don't follow their routine as much and then they try to get back on course. But I do think it's a bigger thing than that. So I don't, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, they're just going to be talking about New Year's resolutions, that's not really our goal in this. It is something I think is on people's minds though around this time of year.
And I think even you saying like foods, fads, and faith, like even those 3 together, you can start thinking it's almost like a trigger, right? Because there's like probably something we can think of like negative, like connected. If we connected those things together,
Do you have an
happened to all of
example?
us.
I would like an example. I feel like there's something
this
is coming from.
I just think that there's that I tend to see, and especially now that I have gone into more just being in like more clinical counseling versus working at the church as well, but just being involved in this, how much there is hurt and pain in those 2 things, and how I feel like when we attach faith to different things, we can be more judgmental, or we feel like maybe we can say a little bit more, and we think maybe we have good intentions and aren't, and we're going to talk about all that, but
like God told me you need to do something about this.
Or it's like if fads, like there's probably a fad we all jumped on at some point that
for sure.
wish I didn't do that. So it's connected.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot. So let's start out with some of the myths around body size and the health of a person. I hesitated to bring this up, but it was kind of a recent event where Kanye West was talking about how, like Lizzo and some of that stuff, celebrating body size and stuff, and how that wasn't a healthy thing, and that was like a very controversial thing, and that was like right at the beginning of him kind of imploding, but it did start some conversations around how social media influences people, and I think a lot of our culture is in this. Accept who you are, and you don't need to change. Who you are is beautiful. And then you'll hear this argument around that the body size doesn't always correlate to good or bad health. So what are you aware of when it comes to these myths? I mean, is that always a 1-to-1, or is it different for every person? Because I think people, I know from personal experience, people judge you based on your size. It happens all the time.
Yeah, I think there's 2. It's one of the most external things that you're able to see, obviously, on a person, and so you can see somebody and kind of use 2 words like that person's too fat, based on like how you see them, or that person's too skinny, and I think there's these 2 extremes that you can see, but it doesn't always mean. Health is such a complicated issue, whether it's mental health, physical health, all that kind of stuff, and all that doesn't play in. Somebody could be in the best shape ever. Like I know there's a guy named the Liver King, right? And he just actually last week, I think, came out and talked about he used steroids and he denied it for such a long time. And he was talking even in this video where he came out about this, kind of got busted.
The Liver King?
The Liver King, yeah.
Does he just eat liver?
He talks about ancestral tenets and all this kind of stuff and how we were originally, designed as humans.
Wait.
And all this
Ancestral.
Kind of ancestral, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said ancestral.
Yes, no, not incest.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Good
like,
catch in case someone caught that nude ball.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was one of these people that's like, hey, we follow these 9 tenets. You're going to be healthy. But then in this video where he talked about the fact that he has used steroids under, specific guidelines and so on and so forth, he said, he's just jacked, this guy. But he was in a mentally, dark place. And most of why he does what he does to look good is because he doesn't feel good. And so it fuels, this whole entire thing. But I think we're able to see, like, if you're just looking at a person, you know nothing about them. It's easy. It's one of the easiest indicators just to see a person and then easily find yourself making a judgment, about somebody. Like, ew, they're too skinny, so they can't obviously be healthy, or blah, blah, blah.
Which I say to those persons, that's ew.
Yeah, well,
people judging.
I think so much of that is just on your personal bias, and it's like, do they look like me?
Yeah,
and it's, I mean,
or what our culture says.
Our culture says is fit or whatever.
I also think, like, even at the beginning, Eric, you said, there's this push to say, like, I accept and I love myself. And it's very much simplified, where it's like, oh, Lizzo, oh, she loves herself. She loves her body size. I think accepting yourself is separate from health too. And we connect the two. So it's like, if I accept and I love myself, then I'm a size whatever, or I'm a weight whatever, or I can lift whatever, or my biceps are defined this way. And that is hard. Like, we're sitting here, like, I think someone on TikTok or social media can say, I love myself. And there's people that are saying, how? How do you love yourself or how do I love myself? That's great for you. And so,
I think that number on that scale can sometimes be how you value yourself or how good you are, that sort of thing. So I understand it. It's,
yeah. I will say that I think one of the myths, a huge myth, is the BMI scale. I'm the amount of times it even comes up, like, in sessions where this cute little person, like an adult kid, it's happened to both, where it's like, I'm sitting here like, where's the fat on your body? And they're saying, well, I just went to the doctor and my BMI was 33. And it's like, how?
Yeah.
Like, that to me is flawed and it needs to change. But it's such a definition. Like, we have these things in society, myths, I feel like, show me more research if it's not, that says this is your baseline for how you're healthy. So if your BMI is, between 25 and 30, then, maybe that's where I find that, maybe then I'll find self-love.
Yeah. Right. That's tough.
I'm trying not to get on a soapbox because this just trips my trigger.
Well, so the BMI, body mass index, leads into, terms like obesity. And that's one of those, it's the scientific, quote unquote, way to define whether someone's overweight or obese, so obesity is just defined by abnormal and excessive fat accumulation that presents a risk to health. And so, I think there's studies where they will take, BMI comparative to, like, certain places in the world, or, like a place like, I always see studies of, like, Colorado's BMI is way less than, like, a Nebraska, because you're able to be out and travel, and
we can
people
travel.
people hike and they live more active, quote unquote, lifestyles. And so,
allegedly,
for those are, like, some of those scales that I think people use that obviously is flawed and not an end all be all of what health is.
And there is a direct correlation to what we put into our bodies and what it comes out of that. I mean, like, there is just choices that we can make that are either healthy or not healthy and are going to contribute to our weight.
For sure.
And I think that's where this argument, it's so challenging to have these conversations, because for one, people are already feeling low self-worth, and then you're telling them, well, you could fix this, but you don't want to, or you're just not motivated enough or disciplined enough. And it just gets messy because that can't be what, I mean, part of what we were going to talk about here is just like our relationship. What has our personal relationships been with food and dieting? And I think for me, it has been a roller coaster my whole life. Like I was always like the fat kid. And, I mean, if you look really hard out there, even one of my early bands I was a part of wrote a song called Fat Kid. And that was like, I mean, I'd play that song at shows and stuff like that. That was just kind of my self-image, you know, and it's just tough because you don't always realize how much, like, because we talk about self-worth a lot, like how much do I feel valued? But then when you realize that people are judging you based on your intelligence, like they're measuring your intelligence, your ability, your skill, whatever, based on your body size, then that's soul crushing. Mm-hmm. So when you're like, oh, I didn't get picked to do this thing, not just an athletic thing, but anything, because of people were judging, they just assumed, oh, you're lazy or you're not disciplined or you're whatever, you're unintelligent. And that's really tough. And I mean, such a big part of it is genetics too. Like we are all born with different genetics. So my metabolism is definitely slower than other people. But then like on the flip side of that, like you could say, okay, well, if you don't eat food, you'll lose weight, right? Like that, and that's super unhealthy too. Like obviously nobody's going to starve themselves, or nobody should starve themselves, I should say. But I just think there are realities there. And so in my own journey, I mean, I have gone up and down and up and down and up and down over and over again trying. I've done Atkins back before it was called keto, and now it's keto. It's pretty much the same thing. And there's all these sorts of fads that you chase because you're trying to find that self-worth. And I think as I get older now, it's like I'm starting to realize like health complications from having too much weight, and that's helped me, you know, be more motivated to go, okay, this does matter about, you know, how healthy I am. And but yeah, I'd love to hear what are some of the relationships we've had with our own food, dieting. Is that something, because it is so personal. So I think to our listeners, you know, we are trying to be as vulnerable as we're, you know, comfortable being around this, because I think it's something that everybody faces.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, certainly, obviously, food and dieting has been a part of life. Like, so for me, I had a very active like childhood. So played 3 sports. I kind of always, most of my entire life. And so was always able to just be quote unquote in shape and at a weight that like, I was like, okay, this is good. Not like, I'm not like the heavy kid or anything like that. And then I remember like in college and post college, like not having that regimen always in my life of like always a sport, always a practice, running from one to the next, where I didn't realize. And so at that time, like I never even thought about, like I remember in high school, like people talking about diets and like things like that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like all you got to do is be active and then your life is going to be solved. That was kind of the thought process I had. And then I remember, you know, after college, when that's just not a part of my life anymore, practice and all that I'm like, okay, I can't just eat whatever I want and stay healthy. And I assumed because I was working out and eating whatever I want, that equaled healthy, which doesn't mean that was true either, you know, because you could still be eating a lot of junk food that's called junk for a reason, that's not fueling your body in the best way. Yeah. But then it'll pay detriment later on in your life when you're like, okay, I never really had the balanced diet, but I could get away with it because of exercise and so on and so forth. So I remember, you know, getting married and my wife, you know, us having, you know, our first child and, you know, kind of going through that phase of, okay, she's got cravings. Yeah, let's eat ice cream all the time and I remember like she had our first child and we probably both put on equal amount of weight, like just on the scale, like during that pregnancy. And then I remember like she lost it pretty quickly because of probably just because of her genetics and, you know, trying to be healthy and all that kind of stuff. And I remember like I didn't like I was like, I didn't have a child come out of me and automatically lose some of that weight, and then, you know, nursing and all that kind of stuff. So I remember like, I was like, it was the first time we did this together. We put this on together. We had the sympathy weight together. And then I was like, oh, wow. Like I was more aware of that and didn't have like a comrade that it was like okay to do that with. And so, you know, since then in my life, kind of getting back on diet and exercise in combination together, figuring out, okay, you just eat whatever you want or drink whatever you want, and there's still complications, you know, to your life. And so definitely tried, you know, different things, calorie counting. I had MyFitnessPal and you know, used that for a long time to just kind of count calories and not really pay much attention to like what types of foods, proteins and vegetables, all that kind of stuff. It was mostly about what's that bottom line of the calorie ticker, you know, which isn't always the most healthy thing. And then, you know, like 3 years ago, I started fasting, like doing intermittent fasting for some spiritual reasons, some health reasons at the time. And like, it's just kind of my lifestyle at this point. And a lot of people are always like, man, I'm not disciplined enough to do that. And for me, like, I do it because I'm not very disciplined. Like for me, I'm like, literally it's easier to think about food one time a day. And that was the other part of like, I would think about food a lot. Like so much of my time was like thinking at night about what am I going to have for breakfast? And then thinking throughout the day of like, where am I going to go get lunch, or who am I going to get lunch? Like I never realized until I started intermittent fasting, and it's not for everybody, like how much,
like Nebraska.
Yeah. Not for everyone. How much my life really, like the thought around food, and then the thought of preparing food, and then hunger pain, like all of that was really dominating my life in a lot more ways than I ever really realized. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Jess,
I feel like my relationship with food, and I would say it's even more like my relationship with my body and my awareness of my body, like started at a pretty young age. I would say like at least when I was like at least younger than 10, I remember like and I won't call anybody out, but just being fat shamed by family members. And I feel like even looking back and like looking at pictures of myself, it was like I was normal, but and I would never, like, looking at my child or sibling or family member, friend, like I would never have thought like, oh, that person has an issue. But I do feel like I started to make those connections. So it would be like, you know, people saying like, oh, are you going to have seconds? Like just this awareness of, okay, somebody's like paying attention to something that I am not, so this must be a bad thing. And then, oh, it's food related. So then this relationship between two negative things like really started for me. And so, and I also want to, like, I also feel like as I'm processing, it also has to do with some purity culture for me. So I'm going to, like, I'll put some of that on there too, where it's just like this awareness of like your body. And I got a lot of mixed signals because it's like, okay, people are aware of my body. I shouldn't be eating. I'm fat. So like, or people are saying that, or they're like making fun of me. And then, oh, my body actually also is like, can be sexualized. Yeah. So the mixed messages, and I think like, right, that happened to me as a female. I think the same thing can happen to men, and they can have like those similar experiences too. But I think that just created more than an issue for me with food. It was like with my body. So then like, how can I like control it, or how, like, and it, so I started to equate it with how I look equals if people find me beautiful, or if people listen to me, or if people hear me. And so it began to like create this situation for me, like through my life, that now I'm like, okay, I need to unravel some stuff. So I feel like a lot of changes have happened, but I mean, there are points where like I honestly can remember like looking at myself and, you know, whatever, I weigh like 140 pounds, I'm 5'9", like that's not a big deal at the time, but it's like I'm thinking I'm fat. And I look back at pictures and I'm like, how sad that I looked and like how I felt because of the messages that I got. And so I think with food, it was like, I don't think I was ever like taught, oh, this is what's healthy or this was not. Like being farmers, it's like meat, potatoes, all that stuff. You know, obviously like you eat farm fresh stuff. And so I started, I mean, obviously like getting married, like that was hard too. Cause it's like, okay, I have this awareness of my body that is like, I'm overthinking everything. And then I think even like having kids, like just threw my body for a loop. I like will say like, if someone talks to me personally, I would say, I often say like your body's a war zone when you have kids or like afterwards. Cause like everything's messed up and everything you don't feel right. Your body doesn't feel like your own. But I will also say, just to be completely transparent, I've like, in high school and college, like I have taken like diet pills, like what works, like what's going to make somebody find me like attractive or beautiful. Like, I don't know. I made that distinction just from people like kind of objectifying, and that's what we do. Yeah. But then having kids, I think that also has changed stuff. And so I'm like feeling fat or whatever. I don't even know if that's the word I would use, and I'm also like, I did CrossFit with like my third kid, and I'm like, I don't know. There's always been a struggle, and so I want to validate people in like every area that they're in. Of like, it's a struggle and it's hard to figure it out. I feel like my relationship with food, it's like I almost see it as like, okay, what are you going to do to me? Like if I eat this or that, like what's going to happen? Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I've equated it. I mean, just our food culture and like with addiction and things like that. Like there's triggers that make you have cravings, and there's just your habits throughout the day. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to sit and watch TV. Well, I should eat a snack while I do this, or I should eat when I'm doing that thing, or whatever. All of our social events are around food, and you would never do that to someone who was recovering alcoholic or drug over, like any of that. And so nobody thinks about it. And like and then if you go out to eat with friends and you get a salad, they're almost like judge you, like, what are you doing? Why are you getting a salad? You know, especially, and I mean, I'm sure it's maybe a little different for men and women, but I do think a lot of times it's like, there's a gender bias there where people think men don't really think about that as much.
Yeah.
Some guys are bigger and some whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, you're just a man. And it's like, I think about that all the time, like my self-image. Right. And so but it's like you get around when there are those things that tempt you, and we don't treat food like we would other types of substances, because food is necessary to live, but we just don't consider it. And I mean, that's something I've always struggled with. It's like there are just cravings or habits that I want to fall into that I know are bad for me, and there's no support system out for you. It's just like, no, okay, well, either figure it out. Like, don't you have, the willpower to figure it out, and it's just really tough. So what are some of the other complications out there to making right decisions when it comes to healthy and balanced meals? I think there's always that narrative of McDonald's doesn't even have salads anymore. They gave up on it, but they used to offer like salads, and people would go, okay, well, I could go to McDonald's and get a $7 whatever salad or a $1 cheeseburger. You know what I mean?
Or I could go to Subway and then I could be like Jared. Like even those are
and eat
narratives.
Like this equals this.
Like they're narratives of like, hey, we'll take this guy that's overweight, and then he'll eat Subway and he'll become our spokesperson, for if you eat here. And so much of like diet culture or the weight loss culture is like such a game as far as like what actually goes into it. Like we try to equate, well, you eat Subway for the rest of your life and you can be like Jared too. And so there's that idea that's out there just through commercial.
Which I have to say, I mean, this is just my own personal experience, as I've tried to figure out what works for me to like keep my weight down, try to manage it the best that I can. that is the stuff that just like screws with you, because they're trying to tell you there's a pill. They're trying to tell you there's a cleanse. They're trying to tell you there's something that if you eat just this
in
thing,
this window at this time.
and all this stuff. And like, to be honest, I mean, this is anecdotal, but it's all garbage. Like, it is not like, I mean, we had the caloric system early on, and that's a science that's just honest. Like, it's just true. And I mean, yes, there are, do you need more fiber? Do you need, some of that stuff is good for your body. You need to think through that. But also, sure, Jared could have probably lost weight from eating 3 sandwiches a day, because that might have only been 1,500 to 2,000 calories that he was eating in a day versus how many calories he was eating otherwise. So some of that stuff, there may be truth behind it, or even fasting. Like, I've been trying to kind of do that too. Alex, you're my inspiration. But it's just one of those things that I have been trying to be regimented about, because it is an easier way to cut back on the calories you're intaking on a day, and it works. And well, why does it work? Because you're eating less. Maybe some nights of the week I eat garbage food, and other nights of the week I eat a salad, but still it works because it's less calories. So I think a lot of times I was just always so caught up in I have to eat this way, and I'm kind of an obsessive personality, so I'd just like go die hard at like, I'm just going to eat like keto or whatever. And then you lose all, like, if I stopped that, I thought I failed, and then I would just quit and go back to my normal habits.
Fell off the bandwagon.
Yeah. Where now I'm learning, I can eat a little more here and then make up for it the next day or whatever, and not have to be so punishing to myself, and actually maintain and be in a healthier place.
I think another complication, and I discovered this when I got married, was with food and well-balanced meals, and to no fault of anyone's, because I feel like I could call a lot of people today, but
your husband, Ben.
Yeah, my husband, Ben, he grew up eating a lot of food out of boxes, or like opening a package, ripping up a package. So
like TV
our
dinners?
we challenged ourselves, our first year of marriage was we aren't going to eat anything out of a box. And I think it's kind of, we don't know how to cook. We don't know, okay, if you look in your fridge and it's like, I have eggs and some bacon, like, okay, I'm going to make eggs and bacon, but what else could you make?
Yeah.
And we don't also have that training, or we don't push ourselves to like, okay, what recipes could I make with this? And there's like great apps now where it's like you can go in and you can say, these are the ingredients I have in my fridge. Like, what can I make? And they can make very simple things. But I think that's it too, is we don't know what to do with what we have. Yeah. And then also, I mean, if organic is the thing, that's also expensive. If you're on a budget or you need to make something stretch.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
Can be.
Yeah,
Makes a big difference.
Cost is, I think, a huge prohibiting factor for so many different people.
Especially
because,
now, I feel like with
to just eat fresh, not the Subway talk, but to just eat fresh foods, which are going to be better for you in the long run versus like making it a jam or putting preservatives in it. At that point, you're having to doctor the food in some kind of ways, and then you're losing some of the, nutrients that would have been there originally. It just costs more money, because you're having to shop more often versus something that's got preservatives in it and will hold it longer and put it in a can or put it in a box and do all those kinds of things. Obviously, there's, great science and chemical stuff that goes into those types of foods to be able to hold it longer and keep it, quote unquote, non-fresh, but non-bad for a much longer time. And so much food science, has gone into that, which plays into the convenience factor of being able to make something a lot quicker than having to, if you've got potatoes or you've got to peel, got to peel something, you've got to, do all the things that go into maybe creating a fresh meal, even like a pasta that's fresh versus a boxed pasta, all those kinds of things. Convenience plays a huge role into our ability to eat well or eat healthy or balanced kind of meals. And for those who maybe have less money or in positions where, there's food insecurity, or you've got a large family, and so to be able to feed everybody enough so they're satisfied or no longer hungry at the end of the day, you end up, probably buying foods that are less nutritious or just easier to consume and will stay in your pantry longer. I mean, if you go to most food pantries, for those that are food insecure, it's not the best food.
Yeah.
It's not
shelf stable.
Yeah. And so that plays a huge role into a poverty cycle, plays a huge role, I think, into, people's ability to eat well. And because it doesn't just affect your weight going up and down, but it affects your ability to learn, having a healthy diet and right nutrition affects your ability to go to school and not be hungry and be able to focus. So there's so many ripples that kind of play into when you get into a cycle of poor eating. That's probably not by your own fault, that just kind of trickles down, and then just escape it. It's really difficult, for a lot of people.
And then even all the details that you just shared, that's not something you're going to know when you're looking at someone judging their body, nor do they need to give you all that information either.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I wonder, I mean, I don't want to go off into conspiracy theory land here, but there's connections that you see with our medical institutions and trying to keep people healthy, and then the reasons that people are going into the hospital and the reasons people are on more medications than ever. And you see this kind of snake eating its own tail thing where as long as people are kept unhealthy, then there's going to be a reliance on the health industry, or the pharmaceutical industry to keep people alive. And you look at the way that, we were told the food pyramid was the healthiest way to eat, and at the bottom of that is this huge base of carbohydrates, and sugars and things like that, which we know shouldn't be the main thing we eat in a meal. And so there's all these things that go into it that we've just kind of been, fat free was always the fad thing that was around for a long time, where it's everything should be fat free, but when you take the fat out, what are you left with is just sugar. So it's just a bunch of sugar that you're eating, and that's not good either. So there's a lot of these trends and fads and that have formed habits in our lives that we don't even realize, because it's been marketing. It's been even FDA recommendations. It's been all of this sort of thing. And then if you look at it, there is probably, and this is where the conspiracy theory thing, it sounds like, is for the medical industry, there is an advantage to keeping Americans unhealthy, because we're supporting that industry. And so if everybody figured it out, there would be so many less health complications than there are right now. And then there's not nearly the money in the medical industry. And so it's just, that's one of those things that I think it's important for us to, it's not just affecting, your food that you eat is not just for pleasure. It's not just because I'm hungry, I'm going to eat, but you really are what you eat. That saying is not just a saying. It really is something that's true.
And I think fads too, as even I've looked at all the, just in my lifetime, the different food fads that have come up, they just end up being confusing. Even I remember when gluten and gluten-free started becoming just more of an awareness of it. I got so confused because I have friends, that have celiac, so truly need to be gluten-free. But then that's also, it can be also a fad too, where people are
just for
I'm gonna
personal
do
health choices.
Gluten-free.
Yeah.
Does that fall under keto, paleo? Where you would kind of be pulling out some gluten stuff, but it just gets confusing where it's okay, there are people that may have serious medical, and then people are
the carb thing was always a fad thing, and it's interesting too, because sugar is a carb, but sugar isn't gluten, so people who are gluten free could still eat sugar. So it gets so messy. All that stuff.
Yeah, there's so many. I was just looking up some fad diets that are out there, and so many of them, you've heard of them because there's advertising behind them, and they don't, change, a ton from one to the other. You've got Atkins, you've got Slim Fast, in there. You've got 1-800 or Jenny Craig, whatever year it was, they would change the number,
You got Sweating to the Oldies with Richard Simmons.
Yeah, you've got
Weight
so
Watchers.
many
Yeah,
Weight
Weight
Watchers, the Beverly Hills diet,
Christian ones like the Daniel Fast.
the Daniel Fast. And not to say that there's not any real study or real help, from that,
Yeah.
but I do think that there's undeniably, this is why it's a problem, and that's why this is one of the largest industries that there is in the United States is diet and weight management and all of that kind of stuff, from pills to all that kind of stuff. And so it's a big thing, and it's one of the most visible things, like we said, about us, and it's something that does matter to a certain extent. And so it just leaves us kind of confused and wondering, those different things. And I think in the Christian world, like as we look at how the church was born, it wasn't like a Sunday morning gathering. It was this idea of like disciples would get together, they would break bread, they would eat meals together and pray, and that's taken different forms like potluck and, things like that inside of, I think, the Christian worldview and Christian circles. And so I do think at large, as Christians, maybe there's some things that we do or support or all that kind of stuff that maybe doesn't always help us get the most healthy. I can think of like food being kind of a prize. You do good and we'll bring in Krispy Kreme or we'll bring in some kind of potluck, and everyone brings their your best tasting meal, let's be honest, is probably not the healthiest meal.
Yeah, right.
Like I want to trade recipes. Usually it's not the...
Or stay after for coffee and cookies.
Yeah. And so there's so much of that in I think the Christian kind of purview that it's based on, like breaking bread and the idea of getting together, sharing a meal together and wanting to make sure it tastes good and all that kind of stuff, that there's this pressure that usually the things that by and large, are tantalizing on your taste buds are often, not always the healthiest of foods. Not to say that can't happen, and I think your taste can change over time as well.
But there's so many double standards in it, because you could sit down at a potluck or whatever you want to say, like a Christian fellowshipping gathering, and you could have some fit person with high metabolism just packing away the food, and everyone's going to celebrate that. Oh, look at that guy. Look at him put away that food. Oh, look at that. And you could have someone who has an appearance of being overweight doing the same thing, and everyone's going to feel bad for them and shameful and like, oh, I can't believe it. You see how much they're eating? I can't believe it. And it's such a double standard, and we don't care about it a lot of times. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to confront it. And there's so many and we get so upset about other outward sinful nature things and the any other activity or thing that's public. We could, like, divorce was such a big thing for the church for many years, and now we're dealing with all these sexuality issues and things. But yet, food is this sacred thing that we don't even want to talk about a lot of times, and I mean it falls in line. I mean, because a lot of times that finger is pointing back at us.
Yeah, it's like
Christians.
The Sunday idea of got to beat them to the buffet line, and these ideas of like all you can eat. I mean, it's such a part of culture that's like it's a celebrated thing in a lot of ways. Like I can eat as much as I want. Yes,
like that's the most exciting thought, and I mean some of it's years of heritage. I mean, you have grandparents and great grandparents that came from the Depression, and they're, a buffet is like just this crazy idea to them, but it's something different to us. It's just about excess at this point. Like, oh, I can eat all I want. And this is nobody needs to eat.
And
all
if I
you
don't
want.
overeat, like I'm a bad steward.
Yeah,
And then we use like
I
words
paid
like that
$11.99
or
for
like
this buffet.
Clean your plate, finish your plate.
Yeah, that sort of mentality. It's tough. A lot of baggage is built into all that.
It's complex.
Mm-hmm. Right.
There's so many different layers and ways we can look at it. Because even at the same time, like, is a potluck a bad thing? No.
Mm-hmm. No.
But
I think we should have more potlucks around here. That's
Yeah. Well, I remember even the idea, I remember being in Lincoln when I was in college, like after a Husker game or whatever, at one point, and I had just gotten done, like I didn't go to the game. We were watching it in a bar, and I remember the guys sitting outside and I wasn't even 21 yet, or maybe I was. I don't remember. I remember I walked out, and to get into, you had to pay a cover to get into this bar to watch the Husker game, and only so many people get. So I got a Bud Light. Like, that's just the bracelets they gave you, right, to go into there.
The logo
to know that, hey, this person paid and they can be in here and watch the game and whatever. I remember walking out of there one time, and there's a guy, Christian guy with a cross, and yelling at us that our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and if we're in there having alcohol, that it's that's not. And I didn't even have any alcohol on that occasion, and I remember.
I literally thought you just said I got a Bud Light. That's what I thought.
No, I got a Bud Light sticker.
Oh, sticker.
Or a bracelet.
All right, that's what
I had a Bud Light bracelet. So this guy saw, he was waiting for everybody for the game to finish to yell.
Just
at
adding clarification for someone.
And so he saw me come out of the bar, and I'm a Bible college student this time, and up for a debate with a Christian guy carrying the cross. Yeah. He was a gentleman that I wouldn't guess was physically active based on his appearance, and maybe I'm throwing myself under the bus here, but we got in this conversation where he was like, your body's a temple of the Holy Spirit, and all this kind of stuff. And so I started like asking him, I'm like, what's your kind of exercise routine and like all this kind of stuff? How healthy do you eat? Like, tell me about, because he's obviously injecting like what he thinks I was just doing. And so I get into this conversation with him. And so much of that idea, like that people project on your body's a temple of the Holy Spirit, is like things that you need to keep out, especially when it comes to drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, smoking, which yes, not all good things to put in your body, but it like is about what you're putting in your body, or what what people label as things you should keep in and out of your body, versus like, okay, dude, what's the fuel? What are you fueling your body with? Like, what there's that talking about that double standard, like that this guy, kind of had. And he was so concerned, it felt like, with what other people were doing with their bodies. And I'm like, started asking him, and that became offensive to him, of like, kind of tripping up that idea.
Well, and as we become more educated about that, when you talk about putting drugs and the alcohol, whatever, into your body, I mean, as we learn what sucrose does in our high fructose, in high fructose corn syrup, like corn syrup itself is not bad, but when it's high fructose, like the effects it has on your liver and the things, how it confuses our body. Like, we know this now. We understand how that works, and we should not be consuming fructose, but yet we still do it, and we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it in the same weight as drugs. And I guess I'm not advocating that we should, but I mean, at least we should consider it, that, hey, there are certain things that we put in our bodies that are just as devastating to our systems as drugs and alcohol. But in the Christian world, we don't really talk about it that way. I mean, even just in the regular world, we don't talk about it that way.
Yeah, caffeine and Jesus. But maybe that's a whole nother episode.
Get those coffee people.
Don't touch our caffeine, Alex.
But I do think there becomes, as we do talk about, Scripture and the fruit of the Spirit, and how we bear witness to the world, I think one of those is self-control. And we don't always get to judge that, judge someone else's self-control, but I guess that sometimes you can judge their self-control if they're going off on like a person in a store or whatever, and they're just claiming to be a Christian, or they have no self-control to be able to do things online or whatever. But I think self-control, the ability to do that, is something that I think we can invite the Spirit into our life, invite the Spirit to be working in our life, to have control over some of our eating habits, and invite the Spirit, to give us ability, if that's something we want to change in our lives, to actually be thinking through. And I think it is a fruit of that. Like I just remember growing up, and a lot of televangelists and things like that. I just remember like them trying to tell me how to live spiritually, And like they were the ones that were always, you know, celebrating going out to dinner and having, you know, these buffets and like that kind of, and I always just remember as a kid, like, okay, because you can preach the Bible and do all this kind of stuff. Like there's just an appearance in you that's like obviously not super healthy. And maybe that's like, again, a judgmental part on my own. But I remember like feeling like there was that double standard
100%.
there, you know, and like for them, it was like, okay, because they're like a man or woman of God to just, you know, as long as they pray for their food, the Lord will take all the calories out. And so for me as a minister, like that definitely plays a role in my own like journey of how I think about weight and self-control and making sure I stay healthy and exercise is because and that's probably a baggage and maybe it's not always the best motivation, but it's definitely a motivation for me to be like, man, I saw that and felt like it was a double standard. So I want to be somebody leading that our lives spiritually aren't just healthy, but we're a body and a soul, and those aren't separate things. We can't fully separate them.
Which you could almost say it's even in some aspects of Christian culture, it's going the extreme the other way, where you've got like buff pastors now who are like ripped and like almost setting this example of this is the Christ. Like, and I mean, I get it. It is like, hey, take care of your body. That's good. But it does start to almost, the pendulum starts swinging the other way.
And that can be the other side of the idolatry. You know, there is like, man, you're spending so much time in the gym and worshiping like that diet so much that's abnormal. That's not normal either.
Yeah. Right.
But also your body is a temple. Looking at self-control, that is something that can also be abused. I think it's something where if we're talking about self-control or our body as a temple, like, do you think that that's going to go over well if you just walk up to somebody and say, well, hey, you got quite a heaping pile of food on that plate. Did you not know your body's a temple? Are you thinking about that?
Yeah.
I mean, we can really abuse and really hurt people by taking these scriptures out of context and not first applying it to ourselves.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a real discipleship component here because we are body and soul. And I do think like our ability to do the best kingdom work is when we are the most healthy, not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, all of that kind of stuff. And so I think this is where it becomes difficult and taboo is like, how do I start to have these conversations with somebody that, you know, maybe I'm seeing, you know, maybe they're a coworker and I see, hey, they seem to be, by my vantage, overweight, and then I can also see kind of what they're eating or maybe some of their eating habits or, you know, the things that they're consuming, and so I can start to put maybe those two things together based on what how I'm seeing them consume and their weight, and like I'm like, how do I start to have those conversations in a loving way with somebody?
I mean, my gut reaction is you don't.
No.
And I think speaking as someone who has fought with my weight my whole life, the fact that you're aware of my weight is, are you kidding me? Do you not think I get up and brush my teeth and have to look myself in the face? Do you not think I catch a glimpse of myself getting out of the shower in the mirror? Like, do you not, like, the idea that you think you're the one that needs to come talk to me about that? Like, I beat myself up on the hourly basis about that. You know, every time I eat something that I feel I shouldn't, I am guilt stricken for hours about it. If I feel too full after a meal, I am like proverbially whipping myself, you know, and it's just like, because I know what I did and I shouldn't. So a lot of times I think we see that and we think, oh, we should be able to help this person. But I mean, it's the same with like an addict or anything else. Like, you're not going to be able to just have that easy conversation with them. Like, I think it's like anything, not until you have a relationship with them and you can like actually speak into their life in a more loving way and other aspects of it and encourage them and tell them like me knowing that I was valuable to others would have changed so much of my self-worth, because all I thought was like, okay, because I'm overweight, I'm not valuable to anybody. I'm not worth it. But if people were speaking into my life and saying, wow, look at what you're doing, you're helping in this, you're doing such a great job here, and if I started to hear that stuff and I started to change my perspective of who I was, then maybe I could have that conversation, and then I would have appreciated it more because someone cared about me. But I think you just can't just like walk into that conversation without any equity.
It sends the message that that's the most important thing that I see in you.
Yeah.
To me. So it's like the things that you can do, like there's value, like you're saying, in other ways that you can contribute, and it doesn't matter your size or how you look with how you can contribute.
Right.
I mean, should we care about our health? Absolutely. But I agree, there is like a sliver of people that can walk up and say, hey, to this.
So what is that equity, I guess, is what I'm asking. So maybe not just a coworker, but like what's the amount of equity that someone needs in somebody's life when they're like, hey, this is this, because like any other addiction, I think that's the same. Like like you, whether it's food addiction or maybe it's not food addiction, but like if somebody has a porn addiction, or they're spending way too much time, you know, working, and they're not caring for their family, like at what point do I start to have like, how much equity do I need to have that conversation with somebody? And then how do I start to walk into that? Because I think just being passive about it to somebody that you really do care about and have a lot of equity in your life is also, you know, probably an issue as well.
I mean, I have something, but I can see Jess is on the edge of her seat.
I'm just like, it's dangerous. It's dangerous. Like, even like for me, it's like, if I don't think I would ever bring up anybody's weight to anybody because I'm too familiar with like that beast and how it feels and how other people can make you feel. And I think that it's such a, even like for someone that's bringing it up, it's such a walking on thin ice because you don't know what that person holds. And you're saying like, wow, you're bigger, you've gained some weight. Like, even for me, it's like, you know, if somebody said that to me, like, do I want to say that like, oh, I went to the doctor and I don't produce cortisol. So like my body like thinks that it's in survival mode and it doesn't know how to get out of it because I've been so stressed over the past year. Like, there are so many things that weight holds. And so I don't know. I think that's such a hard question, Alex, because
I think there are some
complicated,
maybe more like practical things you could do that it maybe are around the relationship. Like, if you are an active person, if they're like, for one instance, I know noon balls come up before. Alex and I get invited to that a lot. I never participated in it, but I do think that's like a great example of that's always in the back of my head. Like, oh, that's something I could go do. If someone was, or like, hey, we're gonna go do, you know, name the activity, like,
or
a
like
bunch,
we're gonna
a group
train
of friends,
for a 5K or like
anything, like you know,
inviting them in.
Yeah, inviting them into that. Maybe it's the person that you're like, oh, they wouldn't want to do that, but maybe that's the thing they need, the stepping stone they need to like get involved in that. And I think if they see that you can build relationship there and it's something that's in a physical activity space, like that's going to help. And you might see a change there just because they're going to start to see, oh, people see value in me, and you might see that. And then maybe you build that relationship and you can have those deeper conversations. But man, the worst thing a person could do, like, I know that this is all optics based, but like if you're a smaller person and you know that you're obviously smaller than the bigger person, like you complaining about your clothes not fitting or getting fat or any of that stuff, like to a bigger person, that is just like, it's crushing sometimes because you're just going, what are you talking about? Like, you look fine. Why are you like, I have no sympathy for you because you're, you know, so don't think you're going to connect with them on that level because that I don't think works. Like if that's your effort is like talk about, oh, I just ate a whole bag of chips, you know, and you're like obviously skinnier than that person. I just don't, that's not a great way to connect.
Yeah.
And I think the comparison too, you know, even on a flip side, when somebody's like, well, you just don't know. I mean, even maybe if they're larger than you and they're like, well, I just don't have the genetics you have. Yeah. And yes, that can be a true thing. But, you know, for somebody that's like, no, I pay the price, you know, every day to like, I'm not super in shape or whatever, but like, it's not like I just woke up doing this all the time. I'm being disciplined with what I eat, or I'm being disciplined with, you know, exercise regimens and all those kind of things. In the inverse, you know, I think there are just phrases maybe that we could talk about that are maybe not helpful, just to maybe if we rid them from our vocabulary at different times would just help us be better and having these types of conversations.
What are some examples of those phrases? Like
I think we brought that up. Like if you can eat all that, you know, like I think holidays coming up or whatever, is one of those, or you better eat all the food on your plate. That's the inverse of it that I think sometimes, we put on people of like, you better eat all of that. And I get like there's Great Depression and some of those things that kind of led into that from a family of like, and stewardship and all that. So I think those are two sides of the same coin of like, you can shame someone with, or you can eat all that, or, tell someone if you don't clean your plate, you're not grateful.
Or you're not getting dessert. You're not going to get more food if you don't eat all that food, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think both of those are things, like I thought you're on a diet, like if you notice somebody, like for me, like I said, and I'm okay, like honestly okay with it. But there's times where people are like I do eat and it's like a shocking thing. And I'm like or if I have a lunch with somebody, they're like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to eat. And they're like, I won't eat either. And I'm like, no, like I want you to. This is just like my life. They don't feel guilty over that. And so, I think she's let herself go. And usually that's not to that person. You wouldn't walk up to someone.
Well, that's a great point too.
You've let yourself go.
Yeah.
But saying that to somebody else.
Having those conversations.
Or never ask a woman if they're pregnant. That's just the number one rule. Or don't ask people if they have latte foam in their mustache, Alex.
Do I? Have I done that? Oh yeah, that's right. I thought one time Eric had a latte foam in his mustache, and
it was just
upon further inspection, it was gray hair.
Oh, no.
And like I thought I was like being so like dude, hey, I don't know if or if it was like from his nose or whatever. And then oh man, I felt like an idiot. But I think there's phrases like, he's a big boy.
Yeah.
He's just big bone. Like there's a lot of those that are just a part of our vocabulary.
Which it's cutting. That can be like I've been in positions where I maybe lost like 40, 50 pounds, feeling good about myself, but I'm still compared to everyone else like the big boy, and so and I don't want to see myself with that because I have this negative context with it. And so, but when someone says it, oh, hey, big guy, or hey, big guy, like that, I just shrivel when people say that to me. Like it's not a compliment. Because of my self-image is, being a big guy is bad. And so when I hear that, I shrink inside.
And it reinforces what I said and what we talked about at the beginning of we're putting value on the wrong thing. We're putting value on how someone looks or how we perceive that they've gotten to be in that place.
Right. But sometimes there
and
can
I'm
be
just like, is that the right thing to do?
Like
I don't think so.
What's the answer? Like if you are, you maybe have gotten yourself to a place where you're like, okay, I was at a weight that was unhealthy, and there's noticeable differences, and then you start to make those adjustments and changes, and you lose 40 pounds or whatever. Like what's the balance of like somebody acknowledging that at that point? Like, hey, you're looking good. You must be doing,
it's such a tightrope because I know for me, like if you notice that I lost weight, you saying that to me, that'll brighten my day. I'll feel good about my
you
day
to keep going.
But if you were to say it the other way, like, hey, did you stop dieting? Or I would just be like, I'm going to go hide in a cave for the rest of my life.
Well, because then the other side of it is like, oh, so you noticed like that I was, bigger, and now you're validating me that you can see noticeable changes. And so there is just that tough. That's why this is so taboo, because so much of our identity in good and bad ways is just attached to this.
And even how we're talking about it. I mean, if we're attaching like how we look, and then we're saying like our body is a temple and talking about the fruits of the spirit, I'm going to connect even my faith negatively, or how I am in my faith journey, not just my health journey, with my success and my value. And so I think that's why we see so many issues. And I think that that's why it's like one of the biggest industries, is because this is such a complex, like multi-sided issue. And so that's why we're asking the questions like, how do we go about it? I mean, even if when someone comes into my office, like as a therapist, and that is an issue, I don't go into, okay, well, like let's talk about your size. My first question is, when's the last time you went to the doctor? Have you had a blood draw? Have you had your hormones checked? Like we're doing like we're looking at someone as a whole body, a whole person. So how much do you move your body? Mm-hmm. Like, do you drink water? Like, I want to see all of you. What's happened in your life recently?
Yeah.
And so it's so hard. And I think it's also like why we need to think through this kind of stuff and have these conversations.
Well, and it's that comparison trap. And it is so much of the times when we're judging somebody else, it's so much more about us than it is them, because either we're feeling like maybe we're not getting the credit we deserve for the lifestyle we've led, and the changes we've made in our own selves, and we feel like, oh, nobody's noticing that, and then we see someone else getting attention who we feel doesn't deserve that attention because of what other things we're judging them for. So I think there's a lot of that it is so nuanced, and it says so much more about us when. Like, even the reason we're having this podcast is probably from a conversation that Alex and I had. And it's just like something that, just something gets stirred up and you go, oh, okay. But then when you start to analyze it, it's like, why am I thinking that way about other people? Why, and it probably has a lot more to do with you. And you probably have some soul seeking and some prayer that you need to invest in.
And I think also if that's the way that you're defining a person as a Christian or not, if that's what the definitive answer is, then we need to take a hot look at that too. Because, even like I think about like how I teach my kids, I'm like, I apply it to myself too of, if they point something out about somebody, we had this when it was like Black Lives Matter, but it's like, okay, if you're pointing out that someone's Black, give me another detail about that person. Cause that is not number one. So like, even like if someone's like that big kid or like that big guy, I'm like, okay, what else? What else about him can you describe him as? Because I want to train myself to not notice that and to see their value. And I honestly like think about it. I care more about someone's heart,
right,
and where they're at, and where they're at spiritually, mentally, and how they're contributing in that way.
Which it goes, and it just makes me think of the fruit, the Galatians 5:22 when we're talking about the fruits of the Spirit. Just like how, like try maybe that's a good barometer. Like check for the fruits that you see. Is this person mean or are they nice? Are they caring? Or are they dismissive? Like what are those fruits that you see evident in their life, and start there before you start in the just obvious things.
I like it.
Well, this has probably been a longer than normal episode. At least it feels like it. Maybe that's just because it's one of those things where we feel a little more vulnerable or whatever. But yeah, it's a good conversation. I think that this you don't land somewhere that you just feel 100% confident in it. But I do. Hopefully, this is just again a little spark that helps people process it and talk about it. But man, just our identities, if we can truly find our identities in Christ, which is something we say a lot, but I think it's much more difficult than it is. It's much more difficult to do than to say. Mm-hmm. But that's where value is, and it's not just about your self-image. But thank you to everyone who's listening. We do really appreciate that and appreciate your support. And if you have any questions or concerns, you can always email us at podcast@cccomaha.org, or you can reach out to us on social media on Instagram or TikTok at CCCOMA Podcast. Or if you want to leave us a voicemail, and we'll play that at the top of the show, you can do that by calling the number 402-885-9930. That's 402-885-9930. Call and leave us a voicemail. But until next time, we'll talk to you then.